Hi, everybody. It's nice to see you today. We are going to launch into dealing with middle schoolers, I hope, a little bit. Obviously, I don't have all the answers for how to deal with middle school, but we'll chat a little, and I hope to be some encouragement to you. I have survived the middle school years 4 times now as a mom. I also managed to survive them as a human being myself. So I've lived through the middle school years, right? And I've successfully watched 4 of my children make it to the other side of the middle school years. And I am currently parenting a 12-year-old. So whatever I have to say to you, I am not preaching at you. I am preaching to myself. And the things that I have been looking at over the week, hoping to say to you, to encourage you, have been an encouragement to me. So if you are heading into your first time as a mom of middle schoolers, this can feel pretty rough. It really can. You actually might have been caught off guard a little bit, right? We go from having these children who are often snuggly and eager to please and up for going to the store with us and being around us and thinking we're pretty swell, to pushing us away sometimes, being mouthy, being snotty, maybe locking themselves in a room or a bathroom. There's just all sorts of ways that our middle schoolers tend to surprise us. So let's get into some of the nitty-gritty, I guess, that I wanted to remind you and myself of as we deal with this age group. First of all, you're still really cool. Yeah, right? We're really cool. I'm teasing. It's not us, okay? It's not us. We are the same person we were 3 years ago, or maybe even just last month. We're still the same person, but that person that you're trying to parent, that middle schooler, is not the same person. They're becoming a little bit different. They're growing, they're changing, they're developing. I was looking at some notes about this, and here are some of the terms that kept coming up. Things like they're learning to regulate their emotions. They are attempting to be independent. There is tremendous growth and change happening. There's a huge mental development between the ages of 11 and 13. There's an increased sensitivity to stress. Sometimes at this age, children are very conscious and aware. Well, they're becoming very conscious of their bodies, and as their bodies are going through such dramatic change, they are aware, and it feels weird, but they don't quite understand. And if you're like me, you've probably forgotten what it feels like to be 11 or 12. There's a selfishness that happens, and they seem to be so self-absorbed. And I was reminded in my reading to prepare for this, they've got a lobe in their brain that's still developing, that isn't fully formed, that frontal lobe, that decision-making area. And so they do seem very impulsive and self-centered. Just looking at my notes here to see if there's some more. They've got struggles that are going on. And you do remember this. I mean, I've said this tremendous change between 11 and 13, but really, I remember reading once that the amount of change that's happening in that middle school brain is only equaled by what happens between like birth and 2. So if you think back to that child, how much happened from the time he or she was born until they turned 2, that's the kind of cataclysmic change that's happening. And here you and I are going, why aren't you doing your work? Why aren't you picking up after yourself? what's going on? Ah, right? Because it's easy to forget. It's easy to forget what's happening with them. So I thought maybe to encourage you and me. Let me see. I've got one comment here. No, you are cool. Yeah, no, Jonna, you are cool. Okay. So here's I thought it would be interesting to read what middle school teachers say about teaching middle school. Okay, so I just looked up an article about, it's a guy who said, I only managed to teach middle school for like, I don't know, a year, and then I gave up and went to high school. So he was interviewing about 4 or 5 teachers who had taught middle school for over 10 years. I think they had each taught over 10 years in middle school, and said, what's your best advice? So let me share with you some of their advice. One person focused on relationships and said, teaching middle school is all about relationship. And one of his big points was, as a teacher of middle school, okay, remember, this isn't homeschool, this is just in a classroom, but I think it's very informative. Be human. Be willing to admit mistakes. So I thought, oh, that's interesting as a parent. My husband and I have taught parenting. We're actually teaching us kind of a Sunday school class right now, and most of the parents in there have younger children. And we talked once about how important it is to ask forgiveness of our children when we sin against them. And we had a father raise his hand and ask, is it okay to ask forgiveness of your children? Is that right? Or is that seen as weak? No, it is right to ask forgiveness whenever you sin against anyone. It doesn't matter their age. So I think this is really good. We think as homeschool, I don't want to put words in your mouth. I think as a homeschooler that I tended to, and still sometimes assume, that one of the reasons we're homeschooling is because we're going to have a good relationship. I'm going to have a good relationship with these kids, with my children. I want to have a better relationship maybe than I had with my parents. And so when these middle school years come, that relationship feels threatened. And it's easy to lose sight of the big picture, right? That they don't stop in middle school, that they're going to continue to grow and develop, okay? But do I focus daily, weekly, on the fact that I need to have a relationship with my 12-year-old, even when they're kind of ugly? Do I need to have, do I focus on the fact that I need a relationship? And that's paramount. And one of the ways to have a relationship is to allow them to see me as a human. And you may say, oh, my children see I'm a human, I mess up all the time, blah, blah, blah. Well, that might be true, but do you remember their perception of you is that you're the adult and that you kind of have it together, even when we're a crying mess or we lose our temper or whatever. But I think they will see you as a human no more clearly than when you admit mistakes and ask for forgiveness. So yes, I have asked forgiveness of my children many times, more times than I would like to, but I'm a sinner. The next teacher said, self-care is very important. And this is something that I know has been mentioned other times on Homeschool Helps and Hacks and different talks that we promo here on Sonlight. But self-care is important. The teacher has to be rested and thinking clearly. Now, some of you will think that's a hilarious joke because you've also got little ones, or maybe you're pregnant, or you've got, 5 kids under the age of 12, and so you're putting out fires all day, and you think, yeah, how am I supposed to do that? But let me just encourage you that taking care of yourself is important, and it doesn't look the same in every stage. But having a quiet moment, making sure you're drinking enough, getting outside of the house, pushing someone in a stroller, getting a few steps in, things that you need to do, protecting your sleep. I know as a young mom, I liked to stay up late because my kids were in bed and it was finally quiet. Well, that became a no-no for me. I had to give that to the Lord because I was staying up, but they were waking up early and I needed to be kind. Isn't that a bummer? You need to be kind. Okay, the next teacher said, love them. That was the middle school teacher's advice about teaching middle schoolers. Love them. Find a way to love them, she said. If you can laser through their messiness, floppiness, awkwardness, perfectionism, socializing, and so much else to understand they are figuring themselves out, that's your toehold in. So remembering to love them. And guys, I think loving a middle schooler can be painful and hard because sometimes it feels very unloving back. And I feel so whiny saying that, but I'm sure there are some of you that understand what I'm saying. It's difficult. It's difficult. Sorry, I just got a comment here from Sheila, one of the mentors, who says water, drinking water. So I thought that was cute. What if I pause and drink water? I'll be a good example. We need to drink water. Now I'm going to choke. Okay. So loving them, it's hard to love them. In this very awkward stage, it can be difficult. But God calls us to that. Sheila prompted me to drink, and now I'm not going to be able to finish this whole talk. Okay. The next teacher said, don't believe the myths. Don't believe the myths that they're impossible. Don't forget about the tremendous growth and change that's happening. Also, this teacher said, position yourself as a guide, not as all-knowing. So I wondered how that would play out for us as moms. As we talk to our children, as they question us about decisions and as they push our boundaries a little bit, can we position ourselves with them as a guide? Not that we know everything, but that we're looking to Jesus and we're asking him for help and we're trusting him to guide us as we parent them. Also, this teacher reminded that they're making mistakes is part of growing. Moms, how many times do we not want these children to make mistakes? How many times do we protect them from the consequences of mistakes? How many times do we act like mistakes are bad, whether that's academics or socially or whatever? Their mistakes are a reflection on me. Their mistakes are painful for them. We don't want them to be in pain, whatever it is. We don't want them to make mistakes, or we don't allow them to make mistakes, but making mistakes is part of growing. And how better do we learn? When I was in middle school, I made brownies with my grandma, and I put baking powder in my brownies instead of baking soda. I think that's right. One or the other. I did whichever I shouldn't have done. And I've never done that again. That mistake was part of growing. Now I can I read a recipe very carefully, and every time it calls for baking soda or baking powder or both in different amounts, I am very, very sure that and it all links back to when I was in middle school baking with my grandma, because I made a mistake and she didn't yell at me. We just had a good laugh. Okay, here's another thing. I thought this was so good. I found an article by a woman who's been teaching middle schoolers for 8 or 9 years, and she said these things. All you need to succeed as a middle school teacher. You ready? Relationships are absolutely everything. Show genuine interest in what they care about. Be genuinely interested. And moms, when you're strung out with a ton of other kids, sometimes it's hard to make time for that middle schooler. But that middle schooler, even though they look more grown up, they're not. They need you too. They need time with you. even if they act like they don't. Just sit next to them on the couch or walk into their room and sit on the floor with your back up against the wall and just sit there and wait for them to say, "What's up?" or something. But show genuine interest in what they care about, even if it seems silly. Talk to them. And here was her third point: lead with love and understanding always. Isn't that good? Lead with love and understanding always. She says they have to work through their struggles. Talk with them, not at them. Give them grace. Make eye contact every day. So this is a schoolroom teacher. And she says, teach the person first. The content follows. So good. So good. Because look, their life, their future, their all things are not wrapped up in how they perform academically in these middle school years. In these middle school years, they're just hanging on for dear life. And so are we sometimes, aren't we? So with these middle school years, I loved this. Make eye contact every day. As a homeschool mom, I would say, are you making eye contact with that middle schooler? And beyond eye contact, do you communicate to them very specifically every day, I love you? We have made it a point to hug our children every day. Before they go to bed, maybe before they leave the house, whatever. Do you do that? Are you still physically affectionate with that middle schooler? If it's been a while, apologize to them. Even if they don't like it, I think it's important as a mom and dad to say, I want to give you a hug. Arm around the shoulder even, if that's all that they can handle right now. But they need to know that you are there and that you have not rejected this changing person that they are and that they're becoming. Teach the person first, the content follows. I just love that. I think that's so good. So, wow. I know that not much I've said here is super practical. Like I haven't told you, what do you do when, I think someone wrote on the app or on Facebook Connections that their daughter is kind of going into the bathroom and closing themselves in there, for 20 or 30 minutes and really struggling about how to get work done. I have thoughts about that. We don't have time today in this live to get into some of that practical advice, and each of your situations are so different. So I guess what I'm hoping to accomplish with this today is just to tell you that you're not alone and that there are hundreds of millennia of human history that have passed with middle schoolers making it to adulthood. And that's going to continue until Jesus comes back. So this time of life is not a surprise to God. You struggled through middle school. It was not easy for any of us. And I know that as a homeschool mom, sometimes we think, well, it'll be different because I'm here with them and I love them and I'm doing this for them. Well, they don't think that way. They don't see it that way. This is all they've ever known, and they're still changing so much. So I don't have a specific piece of advice for you, but I would say this. If you're really struggling with your middle schooler, welcome an outside perspective with humility. Maybe talk to someone at your church or someone in your co-op, someone who's a little further on the path, who knows you or knows your family. And you could just say, is there anything that you're seeing? Maybe there's a need to cut back on some technology. I cannot imagine. We have not allowed our middle schoolers to have phones. I can't imagine how much that would change the dynamic in our home. So I'm thankful that we have not done that to our 12-year-old. And I know everybody has a different situation. So you're going to have to welcome an outside perspective, maybe with some humility, and just say, can you help me to see what's going on here? And the other thing is, I know it sounds trite, but pray. I mean it. Pray. Ask God, God, please give me wisdom about this child. Please give me wisdom how to reach them. Please give me wisdom how to know when just to laugh and shrug off and know what they're saying is just, it's not coming from their heart. Help me to know when they're just struggling with something and I can just give them some space, or help me to know when, no, I need to challenge that. So all of those things take a ton of wisdom. Here's one story for you. One time, one of my sons, he shall remain nameless. I've always promised my children I won't use them as examples or tell their names. So this son, in his middle school years, if he had thought about something for a nanosecond, he had an opinion, and it was the right one. And he could be just so, blah, he's driving me crazy. And he would say things, and I'm like, oh no, he's going to end up in juvie. Anyway, one day he was standing across from me, and my husband was behind him. And he's looking at me, and he said something, and I was like, I'm going to respond. And my husband said, I said, seriously? I'm just supposed to act like he didn't say that? And he said, yes. Because in about 5 minutes, he's not even going to remember he said it. And it was so true. There were just so many things I took to heart that my kids said at that age that, looking back, yeah, they just really got me going. And even now, I'm in the same boat. I got a 12-year-old. The other day I was just crying. Oh, where did she go? I want her back. I want my cuddly, sweet back. And look, our kids have to grow. They have to grow up. And for those of you who are hitting this age for the first time, it can feel painful. It can feel hard. But please know you're not alone. And please run to Jesus for wisdom. Please ask him for wisdom and thank him for the grace that he has to give you. And I think that I've gotten all the way through my notes. And yeah, so I hope somehow that might be an encouragement to you. I've got a couple notes here. Yeah, someone is saying to me, Amy Moore, she says, no phones. The thing that's helped me is to control the environment to minimize conflict by removing phones. And I would say that's, look, it's not just homeschoolers and Christians who are saying it. The research is showing how devastating and damaging these devices and certain apps on those devices are toward our kids' self-image and so many things. So it's something we need to protect them from. And this middle school age is so prone, right? They're starting to want to be a little independent. They're wanting to have friends, and they're wanting to figure it out. And I've prayed and asked God, how can I help my kids to feel not out of it socially, but still protect them to the degree they need to be protected? So, yeah, run to Jesus with this. Try to surround them with good friends. Well, there's just so much we could say. I gotta stop because we need to close up. Let me pray for you. God, this is hard, but you know, we pray to a God who is not unfamiliar with our weakness. We know that Jesus knows what it feels like to be in our skin. So God, you know how as moms we feel trapped a little bit when our kids hit these years. We want to love them and we want to understand them, and we just have this huge heart toward them, and then it feels like we're losing them and they're slipping away from us. So help us not to believe the enemy's lies. Help us to look at our children rightly with mature adult eyes that recognize their weakness just like you recognize our weakness. Help us to see and to have mercy and compassion on our middle schoolers. Help us to be affectionate with them. Help us to love them. Help us to look them in the eye. Help their personhood and their development as human beings to be more important to us than whatever content we're trying to cover in school. God, I pray too, if there's a mom that's been hesitant to ask for forgiveness, that even today they would be willing to do that, and that might even be the key to breaking down some barriers that have built up between them and their middle schooler. Oh God, give us strength. We need your help. It's a big job, and we want to do it well. Help us to please you in every way, bear fruit in every good work. And God, please give us wisdom for this journey. In your name I pray, amen. All right, go hug that middle schooler. Bye-bye.